welcome to another episode of Record Players Podcast. My name is Jack.
My name is Dennis.
Hi guys, my name's Haddy.
Today we're going to be reviewing the almost infallible OutKast. In my first edit of the intro script for this, I put infallible. I then had to check myself before I wrecked myself online. So, for anyone that doesn't know, and you should, OutKast is an American hip-hop duo formed in East Point, Georgia. They made southern hip-hop the beast that it is today, pretty much. The members are Andre 3000, Benjamin, and Antoine Big Boy Patton. They're affiliated with Organized Noise they went to school with, Goody Mob that they formed Dungeon Crew, the Dungeon Family with, loads and loads of southern artists that they've worked with since then. The albums that we're going to be looking at, just the studio album. So we're going to be looking at 1994's Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music, 1996's 80 Aliens, 1998's Equimini, 2000's Stankonia, 2003's Speakerbox, and Love Below as separate albums, and Idlewild from 2006. So without much further ado, I'm going to pass over to Dennis for your list.
My list. Should I just go throughout the albums? Should I give you a quick summary as well of what I think?
Just tier them. We'll just tier them.
Yeah, just tier them. We'll come back for the opinion takes.
All right. Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music is fire.
Minimum. Sorry, go on.
80 Aliens is mind blown. Stankonia is mind blown.
You skipped.
Did I? Oh yeah, Equimini. God damn it. I should really bold these headings.
It was going so well. I had such high hopes for you.
I'm bottling it.
Got through a whole 2 albums without a fluff.
Yeah. Equimini is fire. You already know where Stankonia is going. Mind blown.
Okay.
Speaker Box 2003. I'm going to put that on back pat.
So that was...
I love how you're looking. You're looking to gauge the reaction. We cool.
It is a bit like sacrilege, but yeah, Love Below. I'm going to put that on back pat as well.
Okay.
You're copping out, is what you're doing.
Jack, I love how you split the cover down the middle.
And Idlewild is back pat as well.
Okay.
Huh?
We'll get into the reasons.
Bro, this is some fucking conservative. I just want to say this is how you ended up with like every single Kanye album ever on the same tier last week.
Mm. Luckily, you don't have as much stress trying to fit in 10 albums into a single line as per Dennis's previous ranking.
No, this is one of the easiest Tetris pieces to get right.
All right, Haddy.
All right, so let's go for it. So Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music, I'm going to put in fire, minimum, as you said. Then 80 Aliens, I'm going to put in mind blown as well. So right now I'm on the same wavelength. Equimini, I'm also going to put as a mind blown album. As your first heinous crime, Dennis, for me.
Mm-hmm.
Stankonia, I'm going to put this in fire. Then on
gasoline.
Then on to Speakerbox, I'm going to say is Pat on the Back album. I'm also going to put the Love Below as a Pat on the Back album.
Okay.
And then lastly, Idlewild. I'm gonna be conservative too and give that a pat on the back. It's very, very similar to Dennis's list, to be honest.
Y'all are chickens.
Come on then. Give it to us.
Okay. Alright. So Southern Playalistic Music is without doubt a mind blowing album. I don't know what the fuck you guys are on about, but there's just no doubt. 80 Aliens. Oh, it's in the wrong category. 18 Aliens, obviously, is a mind-blowing album. Equipment Eye, I'm going to need to budge these up a little bit because I'm going to put that in mind-blown as well.
Nice.
I can't close your guys' tab, so I keep clicking on your album covers. Okay, so Speaker Box and Love Below. This is interesting because previously I would have had these the other way around. But
back in the day, you're saying?
Back in the day, yeah, when they first came out. I'm gonna put Speaker Box in Fire, Love Below in Backpat, but to be honest, I expected to put it lower. I've really like flip-flopped on that album, and then Idlewild is going to scratch. Oh no, I missed one. Stankonia, sorry, I missed Stankonia entirely.
Damn, guys, both of you.
It's Fire. It's Fire.
Wait, which one? Stankonia.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's that great, and Idlewild's a scratch CD for me.
Okay. So the discography is fallible. That's what the man's saying.
It is, but
by considering an album, below the midway point.
It's part of that for me is they were just a bit like, I don't know. It seemed a bit disjointed at that point. I've never entertained the film that it's linked to, so like I've got no context from that either.
I haven't seen the film either. Yeah.
I didn't see the film, but apparently only 6 of the songs from the film were actually on this 20 track with skits.
You're green again, by the way, Dennis.
Oh dear, we'll have to wait for it to go away.
We'll live with
That's
with
the
it.
most British oh dear I've ever heard.
Oh dear.
So
Okay.
I think what's interesting, and I expected this, is compared to the other tier lists that we've done for other artists, this is clearly the one with the highest level of consistency in terms of good to great to amazing albums. I know it's relatively, well, it's not short, but it's like a mid-sized discography. But there's not shit that we're.
I would normally be slating people for having everything up on the top. But there's not much else you can do. Even stuff like Idlewild and Love Below, I don't think they're really that bad. It's just compared to, like we always say, it's like compared to the heights they've got from previous albums.
The heights they can reach. Yeah. I mean, okay. I always say that this is arguably the greatest discography in hip hop. There's a few other contenders, but this is probably my number one pick if it was like gun to my head.
Yeah. In terms of like, because they really benefit from being short then, because like there's less room for duds. Where like people like Nas have released absolutely insane albums, but they've also had ones that are a bit like borderline.
Yeah, it's like go out with a bang type thing. Have 10, 15 years of greatness, and then everyone's missing you.
Okay, so what I want to get into, looking at your lists, is the Stankonia Equimini beef between you and you two.
Yeah, well, so just as a quick summary for the reason why I put it low, when I listened to Stankonia, I was considering it as a mind-blown album, but again, exactly how you mentioned, through the lens of the quality that was on Equimini and 80 Aliens, it kind of, I had to bump it down because I couldn't consider it as good of an album as that. The quality of music was there. There are songs on Stankonia that match the quality of 80 Aliens and Equimini for me, but there's a bit too much filler.
It's a much longer album.
It's a longer album. Like Equimini and 80 Aliens, even though they're not short albums, they're like straight through. There's not a chuckable track, I think, on either of them. But Stankonia, there are a couple.
See, I disagree. I don't think there's much filler on Stankonia at all. I think I enjoy.
It's like 27 tracks or some shit.
True, I enjoy the majority of the tracks, though.
I enjoy the majority of the tracks. It's a fire album, but it's not. Yeah.
There are a few tracks that I skip over, seeing as I've listened to this album 1,000 times, and I'm like, I don't need to listen to this. For instance,
I get you.
Snapping and Trapping. Not the biggest fan. What else? I'll Call Before I Come. Okay. Not the biggest fan. On the whole, I think it's on par with Equimini. in terms of the quality of the songs, there are good quality songs on Aquemini as well. Although, thinking back to it, I think there are more bangers on Stankonia, which is why I put Stankonia above Aquemini. I mean, there are some solid bangers on Aquemini for sure, but I would say the same thing about Aquemini. That
Aquemini is not really a bangers album.
I was gonna say that they're different out. Like Aquemini is like I mean, you can tell what they're going for from their covers.
Yeah.
Like they've always been such a sick band at pairing up their kind of take on hip hop at the time with their aesthetic, because on Southern Playalistic, you know, they're out here to let you know what they're about, give you some hip hop.
Right.
80 Aliens are like we're weird but we're still gangster. Aquemini is just a straight pimp album, and they got the cover to match it. It's like a, you know, throwback to the 70s. They're like Shaq and all that sort of stuff.
Well, Aquemini I see as like a spiritual journey almost in places.
Yeah, I see it as like it's like a come up album, you know.
Right, because just in terms of you saying you consider it like a pimp album, I don't see that. I see that. I see, you know, I see like them as like pimps. That was only the first album, and they kind of like, well, I mean, obviously there's the divergence in styles with Big Boy kind of holds it down with like the pimpin' gangster elements, while Andre just completely goes off. But I think that was only prevalent on Southern Playalistic. But
for me, like with Aquemini, it's like you can see their starting point, and you're just seeing the rise, which is like kind of the, I guess it's more of like a gangster thing, but it's like it's like the tale of getting out of where they were, but using the means that are acceptable to where they've come from.
Sure.
And then Stankonia's just got all that, like, you know, it's going to be as political as they've ever gotten.
Yeah. Okay,
so both of you have put Speakerbox and The Love Below on the same level. I remember chatting to at least Hattie back in the day, and you very, very much were of the opinion that Speakerbox was a superior album, a part of the album.
Yeah.
What's changed that?
Well, I'll be honest, like just so I have some kind of I was trying to reduce my like confirmation bias. So, you know, when you get into like a tier list, you have this perception even before you've done a re-listen where you think, I know this is going to be great, you know, I know this is going to be in this list, you know, you have a rough figure in, and when you re-listen, like often I'll be surprised at what goes where. Like I said, in terms of Stankonia, actually moved lower than I thought it would be a mind blown before giving it a re-listen for this. So the main thing I'm trying to focus on is kind of like actually like kind of grading the tracks. I mean, I'm not going to go into the individual grading I have for every tracks, but trying to see what's my average thought of these tracks. Do I love the majority of tracks? Do I like them? Do I not? And putting them side by side, there were probably well. So I'll put it to you like this. So Speakerbox, I think, is more consistent. So in terms of which album could I listen to front and back more often? Probably Speakerbox, but The Love Below does have the higher highs contrasted with the lower lows. There's some experiments that 3000 does that completely like blow me away, but there's also some tracks that I never want to listen to again. And Speaker just sits in that middle ground in a lot of times that kind of puts them on a level playing field.
Yeah, I can see that.
I could probably give the edge to Speakerbox because of its consistency, but there are just some insane, like I said, experiments, and the ambition for an album like The Love Below, you know, gives it a lot of weight.
Yeah, I mean, Big Boy seems to me like he's always, like you say, he's held it down. He's held down that sort of gangster, Lucius left foot, Big Boy character.
Yeah.
And he can be more of a rapper. I mean, if you look at, say, his solo album, his first solo album,
Love that.
Which is great. Yeah, it comes out. It's a solid rap album.
Sir Lucius left foot, son of Chicho Dusty, right?
That's the one.
Yeah, I really fuck with that album.
So Andre 3000 hasn't released a solo album, but I think if he did, it wouldn't sound much like a hip hop album. And if you listen to The Love Below, I tried listening to The Love Below as a hip hop album. You know, sit down with Genius, look at the lyrics, try and get like what I'm, you know, split it up like a hip hop album. Yeah. Lyrics, flow, beat, production, like that. You can't, because
No.
it's so, like, for instance, you've got songs like My Favorite Things, which is like an acid house remix of a John Coltrane reinterpretation of My Favorite Things.
Yeah, I think I kind of like he only was doing like kind of what you would consider like to be like traditional rapping on what, like I think it was like 3 tracks.
Yeah.
Maybe there's he's rapping on Spread with like a pitched up vocal, which I think is awesome, and that's a really hard track. There's the last track, A Life in the Day of Benjamin Andre, which is just him. To me, that's kind of him saying like, okay, yeah, I can do all this. I can do jazz, I can do funk, soul, R&B, but I'm still one of the greatest rappers ever.
Yeah.
And this is the showcase, so don't forget that.
Yeah.
But it is only about 3-4 tracks where he's actually rapping.
Did you guys get Tyler vibes on some of these tracks? Like, for instance, like Prototype.
Yes.
I got like massive Tyler. There's lots of parallels between Tyler the Creator.
Yeah.
And him.
No, 100%. I got that, and I got the influence a lot actually on some of the tracks on Idlewild as well. I kind of heard a lot of like OF production styles, and in some places I always knew there was like an influence, but I got a lot of like kind of associated it with kind of like a big influence with Kendrick as well. Like especially like To Pimp a Butterfly, I heard a lot of the kind of sounds and flows in that album from Andre focused tracks on The Love Below and Idlewild, which was really interesting.
Was it tracks where there was like real instrumentation, sort of jazzy elements?
Yeah, well, the key one that I recorded it was or put a note of was there's a track called "Makes No Sense at All" on Idlewild. I'm not sure if you guys would remember it off the top of your head, but it's a very like fast, like jazz piano focused song, and again his vocals pitched up really high, and I was like, this is so like I know that Kendrick has to have listened to this and had an influence on him. But listening to it at the time, I didn't make that connection.
I think actually that's one of the tracks that's off of the film.
Yeah, it's a really cool one. I mean, it's one of my favorites on that last album. But yeah, I was like, this is like To Pimp a Butterfly to me, or like a prototype for an album like that. But agreed with you, a lot of Tyler influence there too, as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you should choose that because the film is like some 1930s
period.
Yeah, it's a period piece. So yeah, they would have been. It wouldn't have been like a contemporary song. It would have been like a period piece song
made to fit the genre. Yeah. Well, that was something that I would say was particularly interesting about that last album. I don't know if we want to save getting into it, but yeah, kind of. I was curious if you guys had an opinion on would they have been shackled as artists on that last album because they were making songs to fit the film. Does that limit the creative expression, or does it?
Like I said, there's only 6 tracks off the album from the actual movie. I think that we're still trying to, but we can get into this like at another. I guess we're already talking about Speakerboxxx, The Love Below. I think, to be honest, when you get to this era of OutKast, you're looking at a marriage that's basically broken down.
Yeah, two individual artists that occasionally come together. Yeah.
The way, like the analogy that I thought of when you get to Speakerboxxx, The Love Below, that's like that's like if you're married and
they're in it for the kids.
They're sleeping in different rooms.
Yeah, it is a shame, man. But the quality is still there. It doesn't live up to the heights of the first 4. The first 4 albums are like classic era OutKast, but that's the thing. They're so fucking good because these albums would be like top tier albums for like most other artists to me.
I feel like they'd be somewhere up there. Like I thought, if a worse artist came out with Love Below or Idlewild, it might put it up like 1 tier.
Yeah,
but I don't think either of them would ever be like mind-blown top tier best in category.
I agree. I roll back my comments, at least especially for Idlewild. I would probably say that's probably that is the weakest album, I think, objectively. But the best material.
A lot of that comes from my expectation of OutKast. Yeah, like you're saying, a different artist, I'd have a different approach to listening to it. But any time expecting an OutKast, or if I want to sit down and enjoy some OutKast, obviously from my list, I'm hitting one of those first 3 albums. But even if I'm dropping into Stankonia, I hear a lot more on Speakerboxxx than I do on Love Below of that early material.
Yeah.
So like they're without a doubt always the ones that I'm hitting up.
No, I completely the same boat. If I'm in an OutKast mood, I'm going to those. Well, the first four, but yeah, I know what you mean.
By the way, Jack, I just thought one reason why my video could be green is because only the green channel is being taken from my video.
Could be.
So that's either it's not being transmitted correctly on my end, or there's some kind of filter going on.
Well, I think
I kind of like it at this point.
If me and How Do You Seeing It, it's got to be something on your end, I think.
Yeah.
You're seeing it in Zoom as well.
It fits with it fits with like the Three Stacks Alien kind of vibe. You know what I mean?
All right, we'll roll with the punches. It's like jazz. Yeah. There's no such thing as a bad note.
Maybe you're just really jealous.
I want to get into something that I think is quite contentious, right? And I want to say my piece first, but this is going to be thrown at you, Jack. So, just to double check, Dennis, where you put, you put Southern Playalistic in second tier as well, right?
Yeah.
So let me say my piece on this, right? So this is a great debut album, but it is way less musically ambitious, and the lyrical themes that are discussed are way less ambitious than the following three albums, at least. So I want to know why you would still consider it to be, potentially their magnum opus, or there's no room for them to get better. Even comparing it to, say, you put ATLiens and Equimini up there as well, right, Jack? So you are putting on those tiers. I don't see how that's an opinion that you can have, because it's a great album, but the depth's not there. The depth that they get on the following albums are not there. That they're talking about like Pimpin' and Cadillacs and stuff, and that's good. When you're in that mood, it's good, but it's not the spiritual journey that an album like Equimini is for me. So
to me, it's sound defining. It's style defining. It was the influence on a lot of artists that came after it and are still producing that southern sound, that southern take on gangster rap. And there's, I think I agree with what you're saying. Lyrically, like the lyrical content isn't as deep as their other stuff, and it's not as weird and out there. But you don't necessarily need that. That's like it's like talking about metal albums and comparing ones that are using a load of different modal scales and ones that are just sticking to more like pentatonic or classic stuff. They're different, but I think they're equal in a unique category of their own. Because to me,
I'm with you.
You're with me.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I will chime in with this really quickly. In that, the production isn't that good, and what made me realize the production is there's a step change in production going from Stankonia to ATLiens. In that, I was listening to ATLiens, and then I wanted to go back to a song on Southern Playalistic, because I think there's a callback. There's loads of callbacks to lines that are said. So I went back, and you could literally hear the change in production. It's like going from like 320 kbps to 192 kbps.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think there's a certain charm to the kind of more unrefined production, because I agree. I think from that first album, definitely it's a step back in terms of production quality, in terms of they do get more polished sonically as they go along. But I know there's a certain charm to that old school feel. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad thing, but I agree with the perception. I think one thing that's interesting when I was looking through the track list and the production is how the production was handled through albums as well. I don't know if it's something that you guys took a look at much, but looking at that first album, the whole album was produced by Organized Noise. So that's I think that's a trio, including Sleepy Brown. Sorry, I forget the other two, but Dre and Big Boy didn't do any production. And then ATLiens, they had a few tracks, OutKast that self-produced, but I think it's still majority. Then by Equimini, it was about half and half. And then later on the career, it was pretty much solely OutKast, handled their own production. So it was interesting.
That's exactly why I put Stankonia as mind blown, because for me, Stankonia is like apex OutKast. This is when like Dre was like, I'm gonna put my best production foot forward. Big Boy was like I know what role I'm gonna play. I'm gonna put my best MC, gangster MC foot forward, and they just came together like butt cheeks.
What a horrible fucking way to describe it. I get what you're saying with the production and stuff, but as always, I love a gritty production. And yeah, I think with the other albums they're cleaner on the tracks. I also think that's part of it. Like they are like it's a 1994 album. I think I know the other one was 96, but like I think listening to a lot of stuff from the 90s now, there's a lot of things you could nitpick in production because it was
for its time
days.
it holds up. For its time it holds up compared to its peers production wise.
And I think what it lacks in depth, you get in charm, and you can tell that Organised Noise and OutKast are friends. You can tell that they're there having fun in a production studio and working on the album together. And they're chucking out tracks like the title track, like Ain't No Thing, Players Ball, Get Up, Get Out,
but a chicken wang.
Like that. It's
deep.
There's some bangers. There's some refined classic songs on there, like the ones you mentioned. Players Ball as well.
And there's not many. If you hit up a lot of debut albums, there's few 17-track albums with this smaller number of tracks that you wouldn't pick out as sick.
They came out swinging. And what I'll add to that as well is this is such a breath of fresh air compared to what was going on. I think this album, literally, every once in a while, the rap game will become stale, and then an album will come through and just shake everything up. Like that happened with Good Kid, Mad City with Kendrick. He just literally stepped the game up like, yo, guys, we got to step the game up. Like everybody was like Master P or gangster rap.
You get like a generational artist that's like, no, fuck this.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to do something different. Yeah.
This was that at its time, because at the time it was all that bullshit East Coast, West Coast stuff.
Yeah.
And that had just gone too far. And these guys came.
Same thing with when we were talking about Kanye 2 weeks ago. He was the same thing when he came out. So it's comparable. I think one thing I will say that's interesting in terms of, not that this is a reason for why I wouldn't put Southern Playlistic as a top tier, but another thing that I think is interesting for me, that when I do go back to listen to OutKast, I'll go back to Southern Playlistic and it will give me a sense of the nostalgia or a certain time of place. It's dated, but not in a bad way. I'm going back to that kind of period, like how if I listen to like The Chronic, for instance. But if I listen to an album like Aquemini, that shit's like timeless. To me, that an album, it seems like it could have came out yesterday or the 90s or the 2000s. It has that, it's hard to kind of pinpoint it to a certain era, which I think is something that's like magical about it.
Do you think it's also maybe because, I don't know about you, but I wasn't listening to music in 1994 when I was
it's a fake nostalgia because I would have been.
But in 98, there's a solid chance I might have been more aware of what music was happening. Definitely by Stankonia coming out, I was getting into music because I was already playing instruments and stuff. So by the time I discovered their music, it was in a kind of, this is going back to what we were saying about how you approach an artist's discography. I pretty much hit up OutKast as soon as I found out about them. I went back to the beginning and then chronologically went through their albums. So for me, although I heard Stankonia stuff first, I then went back to Southern Playalistic. So that is in my head, that's my OutKast starting point. And I definitely 100%. I find it almost impossible to remove my personal connection to that album when I'm reviewing it. And I'm aware of that, but just I still think it's incredible.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with your ranking. I think for you, it's going to come with a high degree of subjectivity, which is fine. Obviously, it's your own opinion. I guess the main. I kind of had a similar listening journey as well. I guess I tried to kind of view them in terms of kind of I don't know, very objective kind of, how much has this album done. How much does this album do well for what it seeks to be? Does it hold up today? I don't know. So it's very hard. It's very hard to disconnect the feelings you get from an album and have that influence things. Even, you know, you might have personal favorites that aren't the best. You know, you can consider like the critical best, but yeah, it's hard to separate that.
Okay, we've got very similar lists in terms of we've put everything pretty high. Everything's fairly positive. What are some things that you aren't happy with the OutKast? You know, the journey, individual releases, the discography as a whole. Because for me,
I mean, go on.
Oh, sorry. I know that I would change. I think Speakerbox and Love Below was an ambitious choice. I think it was a bit of a ridiculous choice. It makes sense now, like being out of it and past it, and knowing that they weren't happy working together, and they wanted to put out music, but they didn't want to necessarily put out the same music. It makes sense then, but just make separate albums or cut.
They should have been released as solo artist albums. You mean?
Or cut part of each album and release one OutKast album. Like having the double album set up, to me, just now listening back to it, it seems like such a half-hearted decision. It's like they had a choice to make, and instead of choosing either of the difficult choices, they just didn't make a choice.
It was a safe pick. Yeah. I agree. It's like Dennis's parent analogy that kind of sums it up. And I share everything you've just said. I share that opinion.
Let me just chime in with a bit of background. I think the Love Below. So I watched an interview with OutKast and Sway, and in that, Andre 3000 is like, the Love Below was supposed to be a movie. So originally, this was supposed to be like the soundtrack of a movie.
You feel that with the skits, and it kind of does have a theme.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like Idlewild, but the movie fell down, and he just had this album, and they talked with the record company, and the record company was like, you can't put this out you can't put out a solo album after you've just released one of the biggest albums that you of your
Stankonia.
Yeah. So then they had to do this double album thing where they just stitched them both together. So I'm not quite sure what the full background is. I really don't even know what to trust when it comes to talk like stuff that comes from OutKast, because
who was that interview actually with?
Sway.
But what, with Big Boy and Andre?
Big Boy and Andre, yeah.
Okay. Damn, I haven't seen that. I'm quite surprised.
I just stumbled across it.
I love Sway. So yeah,
it's quite old. I think it's from 2006. But another thing I would say is, the reason why I don't trust what they say is because right up until Idlewild, they're like even I think there's even a lyric in an Idlewild song where Big Boy references like we're not breaking up. Like they just keep saying we're not breaking up. We're still a group. We're still a group. When literally to the whole world, you've just released 2 separate albums.
Yeah, it's like they're kind of plugging a hole, kind of hiding the truth. Yeah, like you said. Yeah, I mean, in terms of kind of your original question, Jack, about kind of things that you kind of feel could have been done different. Like I said, much the same as the points you've mentioned and the things you brought up as well, Dennis. I think these guys are like at their best when they're like working together as a unit. So, like I said, with those first 4 albums, in particular, even on Stankonia, where they did have kind of solo tracks, there were definitely a couple of tracks, right, where it's only Big Boy, I can't remember the name, but it might have had a track with Killer Mike where Andre's not even on it, and then vice versa, but it's still the core of the album was them kind of glued together. So I kind of feel like the best version of OutKast is they're working together, they have equal showtime, but they're also displaying their differences in terms of kind of how different the delivery of their voice is, what they're rhyming about, so I think on the first album they were very locked in, and they didn't have a lot that differentiated them. They sounded different in terms of their tones of voice, but the lyrical content was very similar, and then from ATLiens through to Stankonia, you had the kind of the wildly different approaches to the lyrical content. But they were there and present with each other. And then on the last 2 albums, there was the split, and it's kind of like you're still putting out good music, but it doesn't feel the same because you haven't got the counterbalance, the yin and yang of your differences just gelling and working so well. So yeah, that would be my main regret from their history.
Yeah, same here. Like that's one of the reasons why I put Idlewild so low, because I think Idlewild, Big Boy is on more tracks with Sleepy Brown than he is with Andre 3000.
Yeah, well, so I logged it. So I think the only tracks where they're both rapping on that together is Mighty O and Hollywood Divorce. Hollywood Divorce, by the way, is fucking sick.
It's a banger.
I don't know what you guys' thoughts are, but that track is up there.
Has that got the Lil Wayne first verse?
Yeah, Snoop and Wayne. Yeah, Wayne kills it on that track, man. That is, like I said, that's one of the few tracks on the album. Like this is on the OutKast all-time playlist, you know.
For sure. And one thing about the chemistry on 80 Aliens, I think one of the like good example of just that chemistry working is on Wheels of Steel. If you listen to
that track,
listen to the second verse on that from like a minute 30 forward. Like there's this like trading back.
They trade off.
They do.
Yep, I know it.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
I mean, that's my favorite thing anyway. With rap groups, when you trade bars as opposed to kind of split your verses, and when you've got two guys like this that sound so distinctly different, it's like it's perfect.
Well, that's like
what else could you want?
When we were complaining about the Skepta Chips AJ album, but like there's few artists that can legitimately release work after work where they have trade-offs, or they have even like verses that run off into each other's verses and stuff. Even that I find sometimes is kind of a bit diminutive. But yeah, OutKast kill it every time. With each album now, thinking about some track recommendations, this seems like a good segue talking about Hollywood Divorce, which, by the way, the most foreshadowing song title of all time.
Who had the best verse in that song? Can I ask you guys?
Snoop.
Because I say Wayne, even though like I said, Dre and Big Boy are amongst my favorite rappers ever. Wayne stole the show on that.
I'm going to say Wayne. As a non-Wayne fan, I'm going to say Wayne.
Yeah.
I don't remember it well enough. I just thought I could throw in some controversy by saying Snoop. I feel like he wouldn't have.
That's your conservative pick as the biggest Snoop fan.
Of all the people on the track, I feel like he would probably have the least like impactful verse. You know, he's never like he's actually quite a good comparison. He's never an Andre 3000 feature where you're like, Andre 3000 runs the risk of stealing every single song that he features on and just wiping the floor with the artist whose actual song it is.
He doesn't run the risk. He hands down does it every time.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Ludicrous, like the go-to.
Like he's got like one feature every other year, and he's insane. Always steals the show. I don't know how he
spends all of the time in between. It takes him that long to write 16 bars now. It's just every time he's got one, he just phones people up and he's like, "Yo, I'm ready to go. Get me on."
He's got 16. Yeah, it's taken him 6 months. He's like, "Yo, Frank Ocean, when you releasing?"
Yeah.
I'm dropping on the shit.
All right, let's go chronological. We'll go Dennis, Haddy, me, in order, and we'll just go with one from each album.
Okay.
So
if we duplicate, we've got to pick another, I presume. So we'll give people a fresh
we'll end up with 3 total from each.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've got Southern Playalistic. Dennis, what are you saying?
Hang on. I've got to pull up the track list because I didn't actually put a top 3 like I usually do, because there's so many, to be honest. It's so hard to choose.
Yeah.
You could legitimately come up with like a top 15 for this album. Some of the interludes are they're up there.
I'm going to go with the one that I consistently bang, and it's track 20, Gangsta Shit.
We're doing Southern Playalistic.
Oh fuck! I'm on
Dude, you have fucked this chronologically, man. Royally fucked this with your fucking green alien-looking webcam.
With your broke ass.
I've got Spotify open here. You made me do a full double take of the track list. I was like, I don't think there's 20 tracks on this album.
All right. I'm gonna go with the one that I consistently bang.
The joys of live streaming.
It's Deep, track 16.
Oh, good choice.
That's a good choice. That is a good choice. Okay, so my track from Southern Playalistic, not Stankonia, is fuck, man.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, it's probably going to be the title track, Southern Playalistic. It's that Southern playalistic, dude. That hook is just forever embedded in my mind. The funky wah guitar with the saxophone opening. It's this track. This track to me is like the Southern equivalent of Gin and Juice. In terms of just a classic early 90s song that represents that style of music. I could have given an honorable mention to maybe Ain't No Thing, but it would have to be this Southern Playalistic.
Both the tracks you've mentioned, I could have gone with Player's Ball as well.
Yeah, me too.
What I'm gonna do to slightly tweak and get a little bit of a last word on what we were saying before. About the lyrical content of this album, I'm going to choose Get Up, Get Out, because it's not as in your face as the later albums where they've like got a message and they're putting it across in a song, you know. But it's a fairly lyrically deep song. It's 7.5 minutes long. It's got that storytelling aspect they come out with. It's the
deepest
message.
track of the album. It takes a left turn from the gangster shit, which is great, but yeah.
And the Goody Mob features.
Yeah. Love CeeLo on that track. Well, love CeeLo on every feature he has on their discography, to be fair.
Yeah.
That's a good pick.
All right, Dennis, 80 Aliens.
All right, I'll actually get this right this time.
This is the 15-track album.
Dennis's computer is probably going to blow up any second, guys, so I'll fill in for him.
Another one where you got so many to choose from. I guess I've already mentioned Wheels of Steel, so I'll go with Wheels of Steel. Just because, the back and forth, and I'm a big fan of scratching. You know,
that record scratch solo is insane.
Yeah,
is that Mr. DJ?
Say again.
I think that's Mr. DJ.
Yeah, I don't know. He does produce a few of their tracks through their discography, but I don't know if that was
simultaneously the best and worst DJ name.
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting is, they were classed, their production name was Earth Tone 3. That was OutKast plus him. So I think he was like the co-producer on a lot of the like later stuff with them, which is interesting. But I didn't know if he did the record scratch solo.
I guess he's just.
But that's one of the best moments on the entire album.
100%. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. So Wheels of Steel for me.
Yeah.
Awesome, Paddy.
Yeah, I mean, you're a motherfucker, because that probably would have been my number one pick. So I'm gonna say. I'm gonna go for like a deep cut, and I'm gonna say Babylon. Not one of the tracks that will kind of stand out and blow you away, but I love the kind of lyrical content and just like smoothness of this. So it's like probably like the most emotional mellow track on the album. Kind of almost sounds like a Tupac song. I think the production, which is cool. It's less of a southern vibe, but a great track. And it's like I said, it's got the themes of kind of like Andre's talking about, like growing up and having like kind of forbidden thoughts of like love and sexuality as a kid, but he's growing up in like a religious background and kind of dealing with that. It's just fucking awesome, and just kind of again him putting his heart on his sleeve. So it's good. I fucking love it. But yeah, Wheels of Steel, if Dennis didn't poach it, would also be the other one.
All right, I'm going with there's a few I could have picked. I love the title track. Obviously, Two Dope Boys.
That would be my other honorable mention. Two Dope Boys. Yeah. So hard.
What else can you say?
Have you guys found they always start with like the hardest fucking tracks? Like I'm thinking Two Dope Boys, Return of the G, Gasoline Dreams. They would just come up with the heaviest fucking shit. But yeah, sorry.
And but I'm going with Elevator, and my reasoning is, it's a bit of a once again, I feel like I'm gonna end up doing this a lot, but it's a bit of a switch up from you guys. Still a banging track, and I've been looking at the samples and stuff while we've been looking through the albums. It has samples of Coming Out of the Rain by Parliament, but less obviously, and I hadn't heard this before. It's got the sound effects from the Super Mario Bros. Video game in it, which I'm definitely going to have to go back and listen to.
I can't recall that.
Oh, sorry. This is the OMP 86 mix, not the.
Because it's on there twice,
one.
Right?
Yeah, there's the organized noise like mix at the end, and then the version in the middle.
Yeah, that was my top track initially, to be honest.
Yeah,
love that track.
Yeah, I wouldn't have picked that one. I love the track, obviously, as I love the album. But yeah, I would say the ones we already mentioned, especially Wheels of Steel and Two Dope Boys, would be up there. But that's an interesting one. I have to re-listen.
If I felt there was more room, I would have gone Two Dope Boys, but to make a, like we were talking about, to make it more kind of like
well-rounded
aesthetic.
Yeah.
All right, Aquemini.
So many.
So yeah, so many to choose from. I'm gonna go with the title track. I've played this title track. If you could see, if iTunes was my main listening thing, it would be up in the thousands at this point in terms of play count.
Dude, I left I can't remember what it is, a Lamb of God album on, it might be Wrath, I think, maybe, or Sacrament. I left it on play.
This is a genre turn.
By mistake. So that's literally got thousands of plays, and like it just demolishes everything else in my library. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Dude, who's the what's the name of the Lamb of God singer? Randy. What's his name?
I got Newton in my head, but I thought
Randy Blythe. Yeah. He's sitting on like wads of cash due to the stream money that you've generated for him on that one.
Literally. I think I left it on overnight, and it just it cycled through well over 1,000 times.
Yeah, that's annoying if you're OCD about your music library. you look at the most player, you're like, fuck, this is an average song.
That's how I know. That's how I know I really, really like a track, is when it approaches my Lamb of God listens.
yeah, with genuine listens, right?
All right, Dennis. No, we don't. Dennis.
So you said Aquemini, right, Dennis? Yeah. This is the most
part one, part two.
I was going to say this is the most impossible album to nail it down to a single track. I do have one, but I would echo Dennis's what Dennis said in terms of Aquemini is one of my favorite songs ever. The title track, specifically the beat switch in the second half when the horns come in and then Big Boy comes in, and then dude, that's one of like the best moments in music. But I'm probably going to say, if I have to pick, oh fuck, there's so many. All right, Liberation. It's got to be Liberation. This is potentially one of my favorite songs of all time.
Big CeeLo feature.
Yeah, I mean, so when I was talking about like a spiritual journey in terms of kind of, going through the motions, this is the one. This is the one where you just sit on your bed. You've taken some drugs and you're just zoning out. This is the perfect song for that moment. Just like you said, CeeLo, Erykah Badu. The song's like 9 minutes long, but dude, it feels too short. This is probably my favorite OutKast track of all of them. But yeah, it's insane. There's so many others. Return of the G, School on the Barbie, honorable mentions. What about you?
So for me, I'd have been hard pressed not to pick the tunes that you guys have picked, but Spodiodi would have been up there. The Art of Storytelling.
I thought you would have picked that one.
Yeah, the Art of Storytelling is always going to be in my top tracks from this album. I'm going to go with Return of the G.
Which one? Part one or part two?
I mean, either, to be fair, but I think I like two better.
Interesting.
I think I'd I'd
probably say part one, but they're both
in my mind that I don't separate them. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
The amount of time that one of them comes on shuffle, it would be so low. So like I've almost inevitably listened to them one after the other. But yeah, Return of the Gangster, like.
That's your pick, yeah?
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. I feel like you can't talk about Aquemini without talking about Return of the Gangster. It's just such it's such a clinic on how to deliver rhythmic verses, how to swap off styles between each other, how to combine it with like contrasting backbeats. Yeah.
And I think this now that we're talking about this answers my question. So I've said a lot of the starting tracks they'd have are like the hardest tracks on the album. Now I kind of realize maybe it's the thing where like, okay, they're off doing their like weirdo shit that they're like, the average like traditional rap fan is not going to vibe with, at least at the time. And they come in with that track. Do you think maybe they come in with that track to just be like, no, we can outbar anyone and we can do like some gangster shit?
Well, it's almost like the reset, isn't it? It's like they've released the album, whoever is reviewing them and whoever's bought it is gonna talk their talk about whatever opinions they've got about it, and it's like every single time they come back and they're like, actually no, whoever you're comparing us to we can do this, and then we can also do whatever we want to do for the rest of the album.
Exactly, yeah, and that's actually the topic or part of the theme of this track specifically, right? So
yeah. All right, Stankonia, Dennis.
Stankonia, obviously, you guys have you already know.
He's gonna rattle some Idlewild tracks.
Gangster Shit, I bang that constantly, but I'll actually say something that, I don't know, maybe you guys won't agree with, maybe you won't.
That's a hot take, man, to pick that track. I mean, I like the track, but
it's just so
best
hard
on the album.
It's just so fucking hard.
It's also changed his mind in the last 8 minutes since when he called this out for his best track on Southern Playalistic. He's now changed his mind.
Well, I wanted to give it something different, but I'll go with. I guess I'll make it an honorable mention. Explosion. I like
with Be Real.
That Be Real cover. Be Real feature. It's great.
That's a great track.
Yeah, cool. Hadi?
Yeah, this is hard. I think they're neck and neck. No, okay.
Dennis, you've just got explosive West Coast shit going through my head now. I know it's not that track, but just because you said it, I wasn't expecting explosion.
It's a certified banger. Okay, I think that there's two that I'm finding it hard to decide between. But if in terms I'm going for the kind of the objective, high quality, insane mishmash of musical genres, it probably will have to be B.O.B. The flows they have on this track, the tempo of this song is so insane. Like what are the hip hop like raps at this tempo? You know, this track's combining like like a drum and bass beat, but there's like rock bits with guitars. There's like the gospel funk ending, and they're just flowing. Like you said for Return of the G, an absolute clinic in how to rap over anything. My honorable mention would be So Fresh, So Clean, but just because that's like the smoothest track ever. But in terms of kind of like musical brilliance, B.O.B.
B.O.B. inspired by Rage Against the Machine, by the way.
Really?
According to Andre in an interview with Rick Rubin.
Dude, you do your research. I never knew.
That's one of the first things that turned me on to OutKast, because I was in that Rage Against the Machine like era mindset at the time that I came across OutKast, and I remember that being the link, and I remember thinking like, oh, not only is this like Rage that I'm listening to loads at the moment, it's also like it's got that political angle like system, but they're like rapping instead of like it was in my mind wrongly, but in my mind on the first listen I was like, they're almost like a nice little trinity between them, but it's more like a spectrum now that I'm right up the list.
It's the perfect track for showing how they can just touch on any genre but still fit it in a hip hop context. I'm reluctant to go with my choice now because Hadi keeps mentioning my choice as an honorable mention. What, So Fresh, So Clean?
Yeah, it's just there's something about when you hear the every time you hear it, you know, your brain just gets that dopamine hit.
We
got to put it in our list. We got to put it in our list.
You can't. I feel like you can't.
Suggestion:
have that
cruising in the ATL. Cruising.
Well, can I make one thing now that you've mentioned that this album is the top tier album skits wise for me for OutKast. Like there are other albums where like for example like Equimini, I'd probably say one of the one things that maybe lets it down is that the skits on it aren't that great. It's just the theme of the guy in the shop and he's got like the thugs that come in, right, that are kind of like, you know, I usually skip that unless I really want it, but this album no skits are getting skipped. Every skit is a different like hilarious thing. I love like the, you know, the break like ending, like why does that happen?
That was a huge influence for Kanye as well. Because like I know you guys love this the broke 5 broke stuff, like I feel like this was a huge influence on him doing that. I don't love the broke 5 broke stuff as much as you guys do. I think this is a much more effective use of that kind of recurring motif to tie your interlude stuff together, your skits together.
Dude, just I'm just looking at the track list again, just like bitch, stay off of that flow on I'm Cool, and then there's the good hair. He's like, you ain't Spanish, that's a wine silky. And then there's the thing where he's like, the guy's drinking. What's the drink? He's like, they say a computer can do my job better than I can.
Yeah.
Dude, it's pure comedy.
Kim and
Pure
Cookie, rang, 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 rang. It's hilarious.
It's classic. Like I said, I'm listening to all the skips. It justifies it on this one.
Okay, right. Dennis, we'll go speaker box first.
Speaker box.
Speaker
The speaker box.
I think this might be
Hello.
it could be a hard one to choose favorite songs on.
To choose any song?
No. I mean, I could go with obviously the singles and yeah, just eat those all up. But one song that's not one of the singles that I actually enjoyed was Reset. Who's that? Who's got? I think some of the Dungeon family are on that as well.
Cujo Goody.
I fuck with that track. Yeah.
Cujo Goody, CeeLo.
Surprised me.
It's one of the more kind of mellow, introspective tracks on an album that's generally like banging, you know. So it's an interesting one.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, Reset.
That would be your reason, right?
Yeah.
Kind of it differentiates itself. Yeah.
Yeah, differentiates itself. And you know, we're missing that Andre and Big Boy chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah. On Love Below, you're missing all the bars in general, really. So this sort of stands out as it's got decent bars, decent collaborations. You know, obviously, Big Boy's got chemistry with Andre, but he's also got chemistry with Dungeon Family because they came up together. So it's just good to have them on there.
No, what's your track from Speakerbox?
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's probably neck and neck with two, but I'm just going to say one, and then just in case the other one's yours, I'll let it breathe. Probably The Way You Move. I know it was like the biggest single. So it's a very safe pick.
Another one where as soon as you hear the dong, dong,
yeah. But yeah, exactly. So you can't deny the instrumental with like the horns, with the sax, the hook, Sleepy Brown on this track where he goes into his like kind of sung like extended like sung verse at the end, do the MVP, and obviously Big Boy just, you know, kills it with the flow. It's just, yeah, you can't deny this is like, you know, on the level of So Fresh, So Clean. It's not necessarily like the most like mind exploding track in terms of content, but it's just the smoothest shit you'll ever hear.
It's not super flashy, it just gets the job done.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, the obvious choice to chuck in there is Ghetto Music.
That would have been my honorable.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I feel like if I was forced into picking like my absolute 100% best track from this album is going to Ghetto Music. What I'm actually going to pick though, as one of my favorite tracks from this album, just to like keep things a little interesting, is Last Call. I don't know if you guys
that was one of the worst tracks for me.
No, sorry, Flip Flop Rock. I was looking at the feature.
Okay.
I looked at the features of I don't think it's as good.
I hated Last Call, to be honest.
I don't think it's as good as Ghetto Music. I don't think Jay-Z hits his full potential on this track. But I love the way that they've brought Killer Mike, Jay-Z, and Big Boy together.
Yeah. Jay-Z does the hook on this, right?
Yeah.
Like Young Hove in the place to be, Dig Die in the place to be. Yeah. It's a weird Jay-Z feature, I think.
Yeah, I feel like they could have got more out of him. But I'm also at the same time like I'm glad they didn't try and fail. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a minimalist approach. Like it's not it's similar to The Way You Move. It's not the like standout track of the album the way Ghetto Music is. But it's solid. It was one of the ones that surprised me on re-listening as well, which is I think why it's stuck in my mind.
I'm surprised nobody mentioned Bowtie. That
that's a very good track, but it's to be fair, it's similar to The Way You Move in terms of sound. I think The Way You Move was better, did it better, but it's a good track.
Yeah.
The one thing I was going to say as well, because when you said Last Call, I was like, what? Because that's like so Southern, like in terms of like 2000 Southern, that I was like, that's kind of taking it too far in terms of like a Southern rap style that I don't like. So I'm you know, with Little John specifically. So yeah, I was ready for that to be the hottest take of the afternoon.
To be fair, I didn't hate it. Yeah, no, I did.
Yeah,
I was just because I knew there were a couple of features on Flip Flop. I was just looking for the features, and my eyes when
I do
Yeah.
rate. I do rate Last Call because with with the I really like Southern hip hop from that era, especially like Lil Jon and the East Side Boys, of which I can name none.
Yeah.
Um,
That's yeah. No, I was going to say it's a specific sub genre or period that I've never really gotten into. So luckily, this album doesn't stray there too much. But yeah, just having a look, I think that track and Tomb of the Boom were particular ones that I wasn't a fan of. They went too much in that direction, but presumably you liked, if you like that sound.
When I re-listened to this album, I spent a lot of the time in the roof of my flat putting stuff in the attic.
I was going to say, what the fuck are you, Anne Frank or something?
So there was a lot of this album where I kind of like I heard it through my speakers, through the corridor, in the room, up through a hole in the roof, and I was just sat up there just being like, oh shit, actually yeah. I misjudged
ceiling breaks with the fucking sub bass.
Okay. The Love Below, D-Ron.
Okay, not going to pick the obvious one.
What's the obvious one?
Vibrate, obviously.
Right, obviously. But I'll go with my favorite things. I love the acid house take on a John Coltrane.
An Andre 3000 track that doesn't feature Andre 3000 rapping or singing on it as well. Not that I'm hating.
I kind of am. I'm kind of hating that pick.
It's just, I mean,
like
it's basically a solo album. I mean, you just have to accept it is a solo album. This and Speakerbox, they're basically solo albums. So the reason why it was on my top three is because I was thinking, right, so Andre he was getting more and more that becoming that producer, and I think he produced the majority of Speakerbox and Love Below. So
not of Speakerbox.
I think he produced all of his album and a few tracks on Speakerbox.
Okay,
like he produced Ghetto Music, for instance, and one or two others, but
so. This song stands out as like this is where Andre has gotten to. And my favorite track on the next track, literally the only song that I think sort of captures what OutKast would have become if they stayed together. If they'd stayed together and tried. Things? No, I'll tell you which one it was. Let me see, which one was it? PJ and Rooster, but
you're talking about on Idlewild.
On Idlewild,
right? Okay,
I think that's what OutKast would have become if they'd still tried to keep that chemistry, and because I think the one thing that made them split was Big Boy was like, let's make gangster rap, let's make rap like music, whereas Andre was like, I don't want to just make rap music, I want to just make music in general. So they went in these two different directions, but if they'd found a way to make it work, I think PJ and the Rooster is what we've gotten.
See, that's what I always find so troubling, because I find like, it's not necessarily my favorite, but I found like they found that perfect balance on Stankonia. Andre's doing a lot of singing. There are tracks where he's not necessarily rapping, but the glue is still there. So it's kind of like, I don't feel like it was out of the realm of possibility. It kind of, I guess probably on the production side more than anything in terms of what the music's going to be. That's probably, I guess, where the biggest split's going to come from. But I think it is possible to have your differences and still work together, because they did it their whole career.
I think that's also another problem I have with the way they released Speakerbox and Love Below, because I feel like it would have had inflated sales in the sense that people who heard about Andre 3000's side and wanted that had to buy it as a double album because they wanted to listen to what Andre 3000 weird stuff he's doing, and people that wanted the big boy gangster stuff had to buy Andre 3000 stuff as well because it was packaged as a double album. So like they like you're saying, they released solo albums, but there was no way of telling like what the most successful part of it was, except for the singles, which is like such a small snapshot. All they have is two separate albums that everyone that wanted to listen to it had to buy together. I feel like that led to them both kind of pushing for their own sound rather than trying to find this kind of blend in the middle.
No, that's a very good point.
Yeah, what's your track?
So just to recap, yours was My Favorite Things, Dennis, right?
My Favorite Things.
That's your pick. Okay. I mean, this was it was a difficult one, to be honest. There were quite a few ones I could put in there. Gun to the Head. Fuck. Again, I'm an R between two. Let's go with Right, fuck it, let's go with Roses, man. Let's go with Roses. I mean, let me just say from the off, that always my preferred smash hit versus Hey Ya from this album. I always thought this was a much better and more interesting track.
100%.
Obviously, for the reasons I've already mentioned, you've actually got Andre and Big Boy working together as a unit. The video's classic, the subject matter's classic. There's so many like quotable lines. I love like the crazy piano in the beginning and the beat in general. It's
for me, Roses is a potential like sick. Best OutKast track. Could be a hot take considering like some other stuff, and it's a bit left field considering where I've put this album, and like the kind of spread that I've got is almost like a pyramid, but
it's on the same thing because, like I said, Idlewild is. I was going to say Idlewild is my worst, but I would put Hollywood Divorce up on a playlist of their best. So
I think you could make a solid argument for that because it's commercially successful, which means it appeals. Am I? Yeah.
For the last anymore. 5 minutes of the episode.
Don't touch anything.
Nice.
Say what you're saying.
It's commercially successful, which means it appeals to a large segment of the population.
What Roses? The
Roses, yeah. Which means it hit onto some kind of nerve that loads of people can relate to, but at the same time, it's still OutKast.
Yes. Yeah, it's exactly what I want. Even if they're going to do different, even if Andre's not going to be rapping because he's essentially just singing, that like you can still do it. Yeah, it shows what could have been with their split. Semi-split. Jack?
Okay, so this album for me, like I like Dennis was saying earlier. Huh?
I was going to say, because you said Roses was like a gut.
Oh, definitely.
Because you said Roses was a...
That's my favourite track from this album, without fail. This is, like Dennis was saying earlier, you can't listen to it as a hip-hop album. So, stuff for me that I'm kind of not settling on anything in particular, because I've got, like Behold a Lady... Spread, Prototype.
Spread's great. Love Prototype.
Take Off Your Cool. I can mess with on some days. Like I think I'm gonna go with Spread, because on an album where most of the tracks are musically very interesting, but they lack that kind of hookability. I feel like Spread has got a good mix of the two. And it's like another thing like Return of the G, where it's him going, once you've come out of Happy Valentine's Day, now listen to me do this, listen to me flip the script again, and give you this completely different style.
But he's still fitting it into the theme of like love and a relationship, the theme that he's got, but obviously still like going crazy lyrically. So it's a good mishmash. That's I'm not mad at that. I'm glad you mentioned Prototype as well, because that would have been my honourable mention. I love the kind of jazzy, like chord modulations on that track. It's deceptively simple, if that makes sense. It sounds simple, but if you delve into like the harmony, there's some really good, interesting, jazzy stuff going on there. And what do you guys think of Dracula's Wedding? Can I just say, because I fucked with that track with Khalees. Were you guys a fan?
Yeah.
I thought
that was an underrated hidden gem.
I used to hate it. Now it's okay. It's all right. I don't love it, but
it's not the best, but it was an interesting experiment. Cool.
Okay, Kermit Rono, what's your Idlewild pick?
Idlewild pick. PJ and the Rooster. Like I said, this is what I think OutKast would have become if they'd kept going. Big Boy's still doing his thing, and Andre's still exploring different styles. I would have loved if we got like a 10-track or even like an 8-track EP of them as OutKast, as Aquemini.
Was this one of the ones that was actually in the film?
Yeah,
because it does sound it sounds very obviously with the kind of swing band kind of thing. I assumed it would have been.
But that's why I say this is what they would have become, in that it's stylistic, but there's actually 1 or 2 tracks that Big Boy actually spits bars on one of the stylistic type songs, and I think it is mostly from the movie. Yeah. But it's so cool. It's so cool to hear Big Boy on some like swing track or something. It's
Yeah. It just teases you with a few bits, right?
Yeah.
You kind of wish there was more. I'm with you.
You can listen to his,
Cool. Okay.
his Janelle Monáe feature on Tightrope if you want a bit more of that kind of the funky horn stuff backing him up. He's got a sick verse on
Big
Tightrope.
Boy on that track, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, that's a good transition because before I mention my track, I just wanted to say one big pro of this album is that it was like the initial showcase. I didn't realize it at the time, but now because I love her, showcasing Janelle Monáe on a handful of tracks. You know, Jack, as you know, because I know you're a fan. I think it was you that maybe recommended her to me. But
credit me.
right. But she's. Credit given, a pat on the back to you, sir. But because Janelle Monáe, you know, full conjecture, like a musical genius, an amazing singer. So it's fucking sick that I think this is potentially like the first album because she was on Big Boy's label, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of showcasing her, which is so good, and she kills it. She kills. Well, she kills everything. But yeah, so big shout out to her. It's great she's on this album. But in terms of track, I've already talked about it, Hollywood Divorce. Just like OutKast going back to their roots of just barring you out with like a great instrumental. And like I said, both features going, especially Little Wayne. Like Dennis said, you know, I'm not a huge Wayne fan, but it's great when you get a feature and they just, you know, smoke it. So yeah, love that track.
I am torn because like I'm not a massive fan of songs on this album. So my angle was to pick one of the Janelle Monáe songs. So I've got cool the Law, In Your Dreams. I'm like pivoting between.
I think she has more of a presence on Call the Law.
She's the lone feature on that track.
Yeah, she's kind of leading that track almost. While the
Killer
other
Mike is still good on In Your Dreams.
Yeah, it's cool having Killer Mike and Sleepy Brown. You know, it's like another classic kind of OutKast collab.
I'll go with in my to keep the theme of being different. I'm gonna go Call the Law for the Janelle Monáe and the step away from the kind of Dungeon Family crew.
Yeah.
On that track. All right. I think what I'm gonna try and do is chuck up a playlist of the tracks that we've just picked there. I've been keeping a note as we've gone along.
Nice.
And I know that I want to listen to an OutKast curated track playlist. So unless anyone else has got any final thoughts, I think that's us wrapping up. You got any final words, Dennis?
No.
Got any final words, Addy?
No, let's wrap up.
Oh, he's answered for you. It's like your pimp.
Yeah, I've got a 20-part final word. No, I was just going to say like one of the goats. This group. So if anyone has a vague interest in hip hop and you haven't listened to them, I mean that would be insane. Unless you're like super young, but dude, listen to these guys. Seriously, I think some of the best in the business.
There's no getting away from the fact that they have been hugely influential on music as a whole, and the fact that even now they've been broken up for, is it maybe 15 years?
I think it was 2007.
Yeah.
So let's say 13 odd.
Yeah. So the fact that people are still calling them out, talking to them, talking about them getting features. Obviously, Big Boy's still in the business, but like we said, Andre 3000 is basically a hermit at this point.
But drops the verse of the year every 3 years.
Yeah. The fact they're still on that level,
in between radio silence,
it just proves the quality of the work that they put out at the beginning. So
they
we'll
put
be
the
back.
South on the map, really. I mean, there wouldn't be any Lil Jon, there wouldn't be any Ludacris, there wouldn't be any Ti, wouldn't be any
Jules.
Killer Mike, and Thus Run the Jewels. Yeah, so many.
Okay, next week we'll be back with something. We'll have some kind of topic.
Oh, I know what we're doing. We're gonna do the top. Because I put it in our calendar. We're gonna do the top 10 songs, right? Your suggestion.
10. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The top 10 review.
So yeah. So I think what would be interesting would be to do like the Spotify streaming charts for the week or the month or whatever. I think that'd be a good gauge of like what's popular. I think that's what you're talking about before the
yeah.
Where you got the influence of that video. So I think that would be cool if you guys are game for that next week.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right, so we'll be back next week.
We'll hash that out, but yeah, look out for that.
With the top 10 review, maybe of the week, maybe of the months. We'll let you know. But yeah, other than that, have a good week. Keep listening to music. Peace.
Peace.